Shh, I'm gonna do it. Hey, champ, how's that Spider-Man stuff coming?
Oh, gee, well, it's coming along real good, Mr. Feige. I could probably get a lot more writing done if I had a bigger desk and maybe if we put the heating on in here every now and then. But I got big plans for Venom and for Spider-Man and Morbius. Oh, listen to this. You're gonna love this. Listen, I don't care what kind of plans you got. I want money, and I want it now. You want to continue to write your little fan fictions here, buddy? You got to develop your characters. Are you gonna let me down? You gonna let me down, little buddy? I will not let you down. Don't worry, buddy. Maybe you'll get it on the next one. God, I can't believe he took the seal. Spider-Man. Every soul on Earth has an immediate mental image when you think of the big webby boy. I need to go back to therapy. Spider-Man first appeared in 1977 on television screens with CBS's Spider-Man, produced by Columbia Pictures, a subsidiary of Sony, that told the origin story of Spider-Man and Peter Parker, and it's the story that everybody knows. Peter Parker gets hit by a frisbee, falls into the Spider-Van, and then Uncle Ben gets a job as Big Ben and dies in the Challenger disaster. It's a tale as old as time. Everybody knows this.
Everyone in this room is now dumber.
It was the 1977 film that set the groundwork for what would become the Sony Spider-Verse, or name adjacent. Wow!
See you later, dickhead!
The rights of Spider-Man remained with Marvel all the way up until 1999, whereupon Sony would come along and buy the rights to the character for only $7 million. Then money happened, and a lot of it. And then Marvel went, wow, big money. I want some big money. And Marvel founded their own studio, and up until 2016, Sony had the exclusive rights to the Spider-Man character, and that all changed, and it kind of became more of a joint custody type situation. It was in 2013 that Sony took this love bug to its next level and said, hey,
what do you want, you bigger balls to fuck?
how about to honor these characters, eh? By this point, Sony had already gotten a lot of Spider under its coat. Why did I put this on? After The Amazing Spider-Man, Sony wanted to use The Amazing Spider-Man 2 to launch its own cinematic universe of spin-off bad guy movies. And here comes the launch.
Oh, here you go, the first calamity. Oh my goodness, it's silent in here. Sorry about that.
I don't think that was going to happen. Following the failure of TASM 2, those plans were dead in the water. Ah, there, look. And after a whole bunch of rights problems, Sony just decided, okay, we're just gonna work with Marvel now and just bring Midas Span into the coveted MCU.
Hey, everyone.
And so we get a trilogy of Sticky Tomboy, while Sony work on their own thing in the background. Sony looked at Venom and said, are you a real villain?
Well, technically, nah.
And Marvel made absolutely certain to go out in public and say, hey, this Venom thing that's happening, by the way, it's got nothing to do with us. It's a standalone project. But then... And then suddenly Marvel were open to the idea of collaboration. Wow. But even then, Marvel, as you'll see later on, treat this more like a dangling carrot in front of Sony than an actual legitimate promise. But let's just take a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. Hello. Venom 2018 was Sony's flagship movie, designed to jumpstart the launch of the cinematic universe that Sony at this point had been working so hard to launch. Oh, fuck. The weird thing is, when you look at these reviews, it looks like Venom failed. But did it really? Looking at the critics and audience reception on a front, it looks like an open and closed case of, oh, don't listen to the critics. Let's start with Venom 2018. Let's see what all the critics are getting squidgy about. Do you remember the Disney video that I did about live action remakes? If you haven't seen it, you can click to watch it up here. In that video, I talked about the importance of the first 10 minutes. So, the first 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes can be a vital part of any movie. It's like the first 30 seconds of a YouTube video, or the first, 3 seconds of a YouTube short? I'm probably gonna jinx it, right, boy? Oh, come on! Talk about recycling. A spaceship crashes into Earth, and so it's a life ship, and it's got goo on board, and the goo, one of the goos is missing, but the goo isn't a woman, and it's not because it's not really missing. It's in a woman, and it's walking from Sudan, and it's looking for the Life Corporation. Then we meet Eddie Brock, who is a reporter, and has a girlfriend, and his motorbike goes. He gets on his motorbike and goes to a meeting where the guy says, "Eddie, you're the best reporter I've ever seen in my life." And then he gets told, you have to go and speak to the life man because he has a lot of money and he wants to assure everybody that the crash was just nothing. Then Eddie goes and has dinner with his girlfriend who works with the Life Corp, and they have a kiss, and then they do a sleep on each other, and then Eddie goes, when she's asleep, goes through her computer. It has files on it, and they're from the Life Corporation, and it's wrongful death. People, but they're being covered up. The end. Oh, wait a minute, where's Venom?
There he is.
All we've really established is that there are symbiotes, that they're in transit. Eddie Brock he's a good reporter, man. Has a motorbike, goes brr. Then Eddie pushes the interview too far. He loses his job. And then we jump forward 6 months in time. Wait a sec, so why not just start the events of the film from here? We learn plenty about Eddie in the next 5 minutes of this film anyway. He's charming, he's a loser, and he's not a hero. He's non-confrontational. And then we get our villain, and we learn about how manipulative he is and how he has this like weird god complex. We also learn about his motivations and his lack of empathy for human life in the face of progress. The next scene in the store works just fine, establishing that Eddie has history with the Life Foundation with the dialogue that gets spoken.
He's a very dangerous man, and he's a very
I know how dangerous he is because the very first time I interviewed him, just once, I lose my job the very next day. I lost my career, I lost my relationship, I lost my apartment, I lost everything I ever cared about. You know why? Carlton Drake ruined me. Finished.
In the original Venom, this doesn't make sense to include it in the script because it's a retread of information we've already seen, but in a film where you hadn't seen it, it would make sense to include this. A better script would have left this bit of dialogue out, or it would have just left it at "I know how dangerous Carlton Drake is." You could argue that it's because he's telling Dora how he knows how dangerous Carlton Drake is, but I don't buy it. And even if you wanted to change that, you absolutely could. There's a rule when it comes to screenwriting, and that is show, don't tell. And if you really wanted to go down that route, you just change the scene a little bit. Eddie has the confrontation with the scientist, and then maybe he goes home, and he goes on his computer, and maybe he's feeling nostalgic. He looks at all of like his greatest hits that are at the beginning of the film. You just move those, and then it finishes with the story that got him fired by the hands of the Life Foundation. Does that make sense? I'm a very good writer. I wrote Five Nights at Freddy's again. Point is, if this movie was bacon, then there would be plenty of fat that you could trim up. Stop eating the script! They never let us in the kitchen! The fight scene and the chase scene, I think, is a really, really fun way of showing what Venom is capable of. But it goes on for a little bit too long. Carlton Drake is trying to get hold of this super secret symbiote, and he's doing it with explosive drones. Like, keep the chase scene exactly the same. Just maybe do away with the super high-tech, very clearly expensive explosive drones. The script is not fantastic. There are a few lines that, despite the best deliveries of the cast, they really can't be saved.
Yeah, we got more friends.
On my planet, I am kind of a loser, like you. Oh, you will be this armless, legless, faceless thing, won't you? Rolling down the street like a turd in the wind. Do you feel me?
But other than that, it's kind of just fine. You know, apart from making some weird choices like, would a plane really fly this close to a building, especially in the wake of, well, you know. Yum. If you're gonna go spy on someone with a drone, you don't fly the drone like 3 feet from their head.
Oh, Taylor, don't worry. He has no idea I'm here.
I can literally hear you. It's established pretty early on in the film that symbiosis is supposed to be incredibly difficult to attain and risks killing the host. Right? This is a big red pen circle see me after class moment. Carlton Drake is somehow absolutely fine after taking on the Riot symbiote. Eddie is like gross and covered in sweat and super hungry and not able to contain his anger. Meanwhile, Carlton Drake, he's just a chill guy. And for the sake of getting the Venom symbiote back to Eddie, the symbiote takes over a dog and then his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend at this point, and it doesn't seemingly kill either of them. Like, what?
You know, honestly, I amaze myself. Sometimes I just write things on here as a joke and then they happen.
Here's another problem. Isn't Venom supposed to be a bad guy? Like, even if Eddie Brock isn't a bad guy, Venom is. Have him kill some people and make that a conflict between Eddie and Venom. Venom's not listening and Eddie doesn't want to kill good people. There's literally a scene where Eddie's like, we do not eat policemen. Have him eat the policeman and have Eddie get shirty about it. Also, don't describe Venom as a loser. Don't have him call himself a loser. Like, who wrote this?
A turd in the wind. Oh, now that's good.
There's a case to be made against having 2 dark CGI monsters fighting at night with some really, really janky camera work. And that's my case. Thank you. Please clap. But on what I said before, Venom is a bad guy. In this movie, he operates like an anti-hero. And you know what? That's absolutely fine. It's the first movie. We now know that this was a trilogy of movies. But going forward, Eddie Brock and Venom still retain this like weird buddy cop anti-hero sentiment. Venom is not a great movie. It is an enjoyable movie, and whilst it has its faults, it's still, in my opinion, a very enjoyable entry film. You know, when I say looking at these reviews, maybe it's true that people really are wrong about the Marvel Sony films. Holy dog shit. I wish I could tell you what happened. I tried putting it out and I poured loads of water on it and it just kept on getting bigger. Okay, VO Stag here to rephrase this chapter because I went into the weeds on this film where I really don't need to, so I'm not going to take up too much time in the video here. Can I get 60 seconds on the clock, please? Thank you very much. Go. Everything in Venom 2 tells me that this movie was not made for adults. The script that portrays screenwriting 101, aka show don't tell, and just tells us everything. How do we know that Brock is a down on his luck reporter? We're told. How do we know that Cletus killed people? We are told. How do we know that Cletus loved Tia Dalma? We are told. How do we know that Eddie is back on his game? We are told. The emphasis on slapstick and comedy and other things really tell that this film wasn't intended for folks who are looking for what Venom really is. So how bad is Venom 2? It is a terrible film if you want anything more than on-the-nose spoon-feeding. But me saying that out loud makes me feel like an insane person when you look at these reviews. Everything that pulls this film down can be seen in a great video by Filamento called How to Make a Movie for 10-year-olds. Ooh, okay, that got a little bit real. Back to the funny green screen man. But then in a post-credit sequence, Eddie gets sucked off. Eddie gets sucked into Tom Holland's Spider-Man universe. He sees on the TV there's a Spider-Man and then it's maybe sort of teased, ooh, he looks tasty. Now Venom's gonna go and do some bad guy stuff. So great, Marvel finally delivers on their promise to make Sony's universe collaborate with...
And then the post-credit sequence at No Way Home, Venom gets sent home, and at the beginning of the last Venom movie, he says that he hates multiverses and they're dumb, they're stupid, and I hate them. They're dumb, idiots! Why won't they just give me a chance, idiots?
Now, do you see why I could say that was directed at me? Now, before we move on, you should really just stop and look at where we're standing. This is where things start to go horribly wrong, moving through the chronology of Sony Marvel movies. Right now, we're in 2021, and this is the quality cliff. In for a penny, Oh wait, there it is. Venom currently sits on a 35% reviewer aggregate score. But do you know what else has the exact same thing? Morbius. Morbius has an incredible audience rating, but if for some reason in 2022 you were living under a rock, is the virus gone yet? Let me fill you in on exactly why that is. Morbius became a meme for a while, and that is exactly why its audience rating is so high, with some people calling it the greatest movie to ever exist. Despite the fact that it made $167 million on a budget of $83 million, that is an incredible flop.
Well, not if you say it like that.
For perspective, Deadpool, the first one, was made on a budget of $58 million, and that made $782 million. Morbius nearly appeared on screen twice before. Once, he was meant to appear in a standalone movie, and second, he was very nearly featured as an antagonist in Blade, but that never happened. Michael Morbius is a doctor who, in this version of the world, created a synthetic blood that it works like blood, but it's not. And whilst trying to save himself from his own degenerative disease, he accidentally turns himself into a vampire. Okay. Did you know the production ground to a halt on Morbius because Jared Leto, being the method actor he is, dragged himself around the set on crutches, and because he was on crutches, he also took 40-minute bathroom breaks, and it slowed production down so much that eventually the studio turned around and said, just put him in a wheelchair and have a PA push him around. This is costing us millions. On a scripting front, Morbius is kind of like one of those foam pits that you see on Instagram. It's just not a lot of depth. For the most part, it is a paint-by-numbers superhero film with the usual superhero character arcs. Oh, geez, I have all these superpowers. I don't even know how I could use them. Oh, no. People are getting hurt because I don't know how to use my superpowers. Oh, geez. There's a bad guy of similar or the same abilities as me. I must harness my chi to defeat him. Well, that's finished. Morbius makes a big deal out of like, oh geez, this synthetic blood is not gonna satiate me for long.
Artificial blood keeps me stable for 6 hours, but that window is growing shorter. Artificial blood won't work forever.
But why?
He just sort of decides that it's not enough for him, even though like 5 minutes previously it was fine. And the only reason that this isn't fine is so that with no motivation, Milo can just turn up when Morbius has shut himself in a big glass box and is dying to be like, oh no, Michael, how do I help? Blood. Oh, here you go. And then he's like, you aren't a cripple anymore. Can I not be one? Give me a slice of that jazz, daddy. Oh. And Michael's like, no, you don't want this. And Milo goes, yes, I do. Bing. Now I'm the bad guy. I'm gonna go and dance with my shirt off for a while. There's no real depth to any of these characters, including Morbius himself. Developing characters with depth isn't too difficult when you actually give the character time to process events that are happening around and to them in the movie. But in this movie, like just going back to when Morbius turns into Morbius, there's no moment on the boat where it's like, oh my god, I don't need crutches anymore. I'm so fast. I am strong. I can see. I can fight. Instead, he just goes, meh. I could probably swim. Characters have one personality trait or one motivation, and the characters have that's the end of their depth in Morbius. Go to the buffet, walruses. I'm sitting on an amp and it's very uncomfortable. Directors are talented folks. They are the creative hands that lend themselves to memorability. Please see Sam Raimi in The Multiverse of Madness and James Gunn in Guardians of the Galaxy. But when everything is filmed as either two flat angles or like random slow motion for the sake of things being slow, it gets very forgettable. Another huge problem is that this film doesn't know what it wants to be tonally. Is it a horror? Is it a goofy comedy? Is it a fantastical superhero film? Well, when you've got a nurse being stalked like this in one scene, immediately followed by Matt Smith doing whatever this is meant to be, I don't know what the answer is.
Can you tell us, what genre is this film meant to be?
Yes. In 2010, we had visual effects that looked like this. Going forward 12 years, you would assume that we would have visual effects that were infinitely better. We don't. Time is a tool you can put on the wall, or never mind, it's gone. Morbius had a real time of it behind the scenes. Filming commenced in February 2019, and it was finished by July of 2019, which is what's called principal photography. That's all your raws and your rushes ready to go for the edit. But then, reshoots had to happen in February of 2020 because Sony and Marvel reached a new agreement that extended the license that they had for Spider-Man. Part of this agreement would see that Spider-Man could cross universes from the MCU to the SSU. And now look, the carrot's back. The reshoots thus involved filming with Michael Keaton as the Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming. Keaton even admitted that he was hastily informed over the reasons that he was appearing in Morbius, adding,
it was a little confusing. Did you know what that, like, what was even happening, what it was leading to? What?
And even they couldn't quite explain it. Let me just kind of tell you. And I go, okay, I really don't quite know what you're talking about, or even who some of these people are. And he said, okay, let me explain. But it was complicated because they were, obviously looking down the road and said, here's how it's going to work. This is what's going to happen here. And I go, okay. I'm in.
I'm not sure how I got here. Has to do with Spider-Man, I think.
And through all of this, the visual effects department were trying to cobble together what the director sort of had as a vision, which he himself described as being inspired by Pokemon. As discussed in a previous video, time is a huge healer when it comes to visual effects. All of this reeks of no time to work and even a lack of vision. Yeah, no, don't worry about it. We'll fix that in post. The premise of Morbius had potential. It's a darker, more morally ambiguous character from the Spider-Man universe, but the film doesn't capitalize on that. What I mean is it never fully commits to the darker side of Morbius's character, his anti-hero persona, or even the implications of his transformation. And that's why the result feels shallow. Is it so bad it's good? Definitely at parts, but for huge swaths of the film, it's just boring. And a film can't be worth laughing at if for huge swaths of the movie, you're just waiting for the next really, really bad bit. You can laugh at The Room because there's never really any breathing space between the ridiculous bits of The Room. It's just one continuous whir. But if you sat watching a film that is supposed to be so bad it's good, and for huge chunks of it, you're just kind of waiting, it doesn't quite fit the mold. We actually went to go and see Morbius in the cinema, not knowing how bad it was. And it was for my friend Ben's birthday. And once we'd left the theater, he said that his day had been ruined. Good times, great friends. Marvel kept on giving Sony the potential to enter the great MCU. This is the carrot that keeps on getting dangled in front of Sony. Look at the Morbius post-credits scene. Look at the Venom post-credits scene. It's like if you were playing Dungeons and Dragons and you come up with some like really amazing way to overcome an enemy in a campaign, and then the DM shuts you down just because, well, that's not what I had planned, even though what you came up with could maybe work. I've just realized that this analogy is incredibly niche. Well, I mean, that's Morbius. Can't get much worse than this, can I? Hey? Let's talk about Madam Web. Madam Web in the Marvel Comics is an old woman with some like John B looking sunglasses on, just kind of looking around in a wheelchair. Or not even a wheelchair, just a chair. She's a clairvoyant, precognitive mutant, blind as they come, and relies on life support because she has Myasthenia gravis. Yo, what a screen machine she is. She looks like she'd end up like the wheelchair guy in Manhunter. But forget the comics for a bit, and let's look at solely the movie on its own merits. Does it do itself justice? The guys who wrote Morbius also wrote Madam Web. What do you want me to say? Madam Web suffers a lot of the same problems that we've already discussed in Morbius and Venom, and it makes a lot of sense considering that this film has the same writer as If you haven't seen Madam Web, let me just sum up the entire story real quick. On your marks, go! In 1973 in Peru, there's a research team led by a pregnant Constant Webb and a dude called Ezekiel Sims. He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died. He shoots her and takes this massive beetroot spider. A tribe attempts to save Constance by having one of the spiders bite her. It doesn't work. She gives birth to Cassandra Webb, and then she dies. 30 years later, Cassandra works as a paramedic in New York City with Ben Parker. Oh my goodness, it's just Ben is from This Is Spider-Man. Cassie falls into a river and has a near-death experience, and that activates something. When she's revived, she begins having mad visions. She dismisses them as deja vu, but then her mate dies and she goes, oh man, I can see the future. Meanwhile, Ezekiel, he was in the Amazon with my mom when she was reaching city spiders before she died, who has limited precognition and also buffed physical stats, is looking for these teenage girls because he had a dream that they were going to kill him. I don't remember the names. It doesn't matter. He thinks these cardboard cutouts want to kill him. Then they're at a train station and Cassie stops it. She precogs an ambush. She stops it from happening, and then hang on. This complete stranger abducts these 3 teenage girls and bongs them into a taxi, then tells them that they were gonna die and that she should just be trusted, and then she takes them to the middle of the woods and she chucks them out of the car and says, you stay here, I'm gonna go away for a bit. Bye. She nicks off to go through all of her mother's notes. She could have just took them with her, and she learns of Ezekiel's identity. She was in the girls go to a diner. Oh no. Ezekiel somehow finds them. Cassie sees them die, and then she dies, and then doesn't even try to save herself. But that didn't happen. That was a precondition. So she runs him over with a car, takes the girls back to Queens, and leaves them in the custody of Ben Parker. And then she nicks off again. Cassie flies to Peru, and then she tracks down this old tribe guy who tried to save her mom, and he's like a stranger, but he's like, do you trust me? And then just force pushes her soul into some water. She experiences a plane of higher consciousness where like all living things are connected and every possible future can be seen, where she then learns that the reason that her mom was in the Amazon forest researching spiders before she died was because she was trying to find this spider that could cure an illness that she was going to be born with, which was myasthenia gravis, and she finds out about it, that she's got it in utero, and that's not how that disease works. And we get a way worse version of with great power comes great responsibility. That's just like what Ben said. Dude, it's just like what Ben Parker said to Peter Parker when he was in the car. It's all connected. Ben's pregnant sister-in-law has to go to the hospital and give birth to Peter Parker. Whoa. While she's in labor, Ezekiel finds them at the hospital again. He was in the Amazon rainforest, but then Cassie rescues them by running him over again, and she distracts Ezekiel. Ben and Mary escape. Ezekiel tracks them down to a condemned fireworks factory where they've set up a bunch of traps for a final fight. He destroys a helicopter that Cassie signals for rescue, and that separates the girls. And then instead of killing Cassie, even though he has her dead to rights, he starts monologuing again. Cassie uses her powers to stand perfectly still in front of Ezekiel and help the girls by astroplaning. And because she's just stood in front of Ezekiel, he just punches her in the nose. Then a Pepsi sign, this is not a joke, a Pepsi sign falls on Ezekiel. Cassie falls in the water again, gets hit in the face by a supersonic firework. Pepsi saves the day. The girls save Cassie from being drowned with like some CPR thing that happens early in the movie. Cassie wakes up, and not only is she blind, she's also a paraplegic now from her injuries. And then Cassie says some like really dumb shit, and then the film ends.
The best thing about the future, it hasn't happened yet.
That's it?
So apart from that, why isn't Madam Web a good movie?
There is a character who I swear 90% of his dialogue is just ADR. It's Ezekiel, the guy who was in the Amazon rainforest with the blah 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 blah. You know that guy. All of his dialogue sounds like this. Like I'm just talking into my microphone right now.
The main antagonist has a spider suit, but why? We know that Peter Parker's Spider-Man suit looks the way it does because he designed it. So why do their spider suits look like his spider suit? He's not even been born! Apart from just the script, the performances in this movie, they just make you want to fall asleep.
I mean,
The action sequences are incredibly poorly directed. Dakota Johnson clearly is not an action star.
There is one camera movement that I really do like, and it's this. The rest is it's like finding a penny in poo.
Also, you know the part with the hospital? The Ezekiel, he tries to kill the 3 girls just with a grenade. I'm going to blow you, all 3 of you up with 1 grenade. I doubt that I need to remind you that the main villain was killed by a product placement. Cassie gets blinded by a firework, which, like, we know how fireworks work. They go up, and then obviously there's the whole, like, this movie's supposed to take place in 2003, and this guy's a PSP. Now look, making movies is incredibly difficult. It's way more difficult than we can probably perceive because I'm guessing neither of us have worked on professional film before. I went to uni and I made student films. The maximum crew that I had on one of those was like 20. The phrase, "it takes a village," very much applies to pretty much anything that you see in the cinema. And if just one person drops the ball in that village, the entire village burns. But at the helm of any movie, there is a producer, and the producer's job is to oversee the entire process of making a movie. It's a little bit like a foreman on a construction site. Their job is to make sure that everything is going well and everybody is doing their jobs adequately. And it just feels here like the producers didn't care at all. The only thing that they cared about quite clearly when it came to this movie was hit play on that CD player, boys. We got track 5 of Dark Side of the Moon. Call that shit money. Recently, while writing this video, I had an incredibly interesting conversation with a friend of mine. Shout out to Steph, about how it doesn't really matter what you make or what you do, people will find a reason to dislike it regardless. And yeah, people suck, but I think asking for better in terms of filmmaking and storytelling isn't super unjust. And it's not like Sony hasn't made some amazing Marvel films in their catalog. In looking forward to dipping their toes in the MCU, they've upset a lot of people and made some creative decisions that just don't make a lot of sense and betray their own storytelling. Now, to end this video, I would like to leave you with a really fun thought experiment. Spider-Man 3. When it came out, it was laughed out of the cinemas and reviewed awfully. But retrospectively, here we are, 15, nearly 20 years later. God, that's a terrifying thought. And people like that movie. And so, with the films that we've watched today, how many of them do you think will have that opinion applied to them 10, 15, 20 years from now? 1 of them, 2 of them, all of them, or none of them? Please let me know what you think in the comments down below, or just comment egg. If you've watched this long, thank you so very much. You are what is making this channel grow, and if you like the video and you comment egg, then it helps me out a great deal. Thank you so very much for watching this video all the way to the end. I've been Stag, you have been wonderful. And for the outro of this video, allow me to make it something very special.